You know, I've been living near Venice for the last 7 years, and I come here all the time. And I've seen plenty of people who are really let down with their gondola ride experience. They didn't really know what they were getting into. That's because not all gondola rides are created equal. So I want to give you some tips so that way you get the most out of your gondola ride experience in Venice. I'm Sal, this is Hidden Italy, andiamo. Make sure you stick around to the end because I'll have some bonus information to give you after the tips are over. There's no haggling when it comes to the price of a gondola ride. It's a fixed price, and that price is fixed by the city, so the gondoliers have to respect that price. So it's €90 for 30 minutes during the daytime. After 7 p.m., it goes up to €110 for 30 minutes. No, literally, don't rock the boat. Your gondolier is going to get you on the boat, and he's going to set you in the seats where you should sit, because he needs to make sure it's balanced so that way when you do hit some of that choppy water, you don't tumble over. So it's really important to stay where you're supposed to be. This tip is a little bit subjective. In my opinion, it's better to find a quiet canal. You're going to get a more peaceful and authentic experience that way. But some people really want to be on the Grand Canal, because that's where the iconic sites are. You've got the Rialto Bridge, you've also got the Bridge of Sighs by San Marco. So it kind of makes sense to get on the Grand Canal. But just know what you're getting into. It's chaotic on the Grand Canal, especially between like 10 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Your gondolier is going to make or break your experience. You want to make sure you find the right gondolier, but how do you do that? Well, the key is you don't just take the first gondola that you see. Go up, talk to the guy, ask him a few questions, get a sense of his personality. If he's kind of brusque and abrupt, isn't really interested in answering too many questions, then chances are you're not going to have a great experience with that guy. Move on, find somebody else. And when you do get a good gondolier, he's going to give you some tips about where to eat. He'll tell you about the sites that you're passing, give you a little history lesson. It really does make for a great experience when you get a good gondolier. It can rain a lot here. It does get windy. It can get pretty chilly in the winter. In addition to that, you've also got the acqua alta that you have to beware of. That's the high tide, the exceptionally high tide that happens between November and around April, early April. So you have to be checking the weather before you take your gondola ride. One, because you want to dress appropriately. It does go rain or shine, so if it is raining, wear a poncho, bring an umbrella, you can still take a ride. But if there's acqua alta, some of those gondolas are going to cancel for the day because they simply can't get under a lot of the bridges when the water's too high. Also, if there's high winds and choppy waves, they're going to call it a day. They're not going to go out on the water if it's going to be dangerous. Some people think that a gondola is a mode of transportation. Now, way back when it was basically your car a long time ago. But these days, it's not a way to get from point A to point B. In fact, you're just going to go point A and then back to point A. So understand that that's how it works. You can't say, get on at the Rialto and then get off somewhere else. You're going to go back to where you started. If you're on a budget, that doesn't mean that you can't have a gondola ride experience. In fact, you can share a gondola with other people and split the cost. Like I said, that 90 or 110 euro, that's for the gondola. You have that gondola for 30 minutes, and you can fit up to 5 people on that gondola. That means if you've got 5 people with you, you're in a group, you can split that cost up, and suddenly it becomes a lot more manageable. If you're traveling by yourself, though, what do? Well, you can buy a ticket in advance. You can go online, buy a ticket, and that gives you a shared gondola. The only catch is that you have to be at a certain place at a certain time to take that gondola. You can't just walk up to any gondola. I've got some links in the description box below so you can find the one that's going to work for you. Keep in mind that most of the crowds that come to Venice are here for the day, just day trippers, and they all flood in around late morning. That means if you want a nice, quiet, and peaceful gondola ride, you should start early in the day. Generally, they start around 9 o'clock, so if you're already at your gondola station at 9, you should be able to get started and finish up your ride before any of the tourists really get here. On the flip side of that is a lot of those day trippers leave around the same time. So late afternoon, kind of early evening. If you take a ride after 7 o'clock, you're generally going to find it nice and peaceful. A lot of the boats in the canals are done for the day. Workers have already gone home as well. And one of the best experiences in Venice is a sunset gondola ride. So if you really want a nice, peaceful ride, look for the sunset ride, try to time it for when the sun's going down, find a canal where you're going to get some exposure to the sunset, and that's really going to make your experience. Okay, that pretty much covers all the tips, but there's some extra information that you might want to know. A lot of people have the same questions, so this is a good place to answer those. No, you don't really tip the gondolier. Of course, go ahead if you want to. They'll accept a tip. Actually, some of them might not. Remember that in Italy, tipping is not really much of a thing, and especially when it comes to business owners. The key thing to remember about a gondolier is that's his business. He owns the gondola. He's not working for somebody else. He's working for himself. So generally in that case, you don't tip. Again, if you feel like you got extra attention or the gondolier went above and beyond, you want to show your appreciation, go ahead, but it's not mandatory. If you're the type that generally gets seasick, there's a possibility that that could happen. It's different than being on a regular boat. So probably not is my answer to that, but you never know. There are some good alternatives to taking a gondola ride. If you really just feel it's too cliche, or maybe €90 for 30 minutes is just not providing the value that you would expect, then there are other things that you can do. The most obvious one is to take the Vaporetto. That's the water bus. It's not a ferry, it actually acts like a bus. Picks you up in one spot, it follows a route, it drops people off along that route. Now, the Grand Canal is really beautiful to take a ride on the Vaporetto. It's line number 1. You can pick it up at the train station, Piazzale Roma, or coming back the other way, you could pick it up, say at San Marco, and go all the way back. Another option is to go with Row Venice. This is a company that does rowing lessons. You don't get to row a gondola. There's another type of boat called the Sondolo that's very similar to a gondola, but they'll take tourists out and teach them how to row those. So you'll row your own boat on those canals, and that's a pretty cool experience. It also lasts a lot longer than the 30-minute gondola ride. So as you can see, a gondola ride isn't exactly rocket science. But as is the case with a lot of things in Venice, the more prepared you are for what goes on when you get here, the better it's going to be for you. You're going to have a much smoother and pleasant experience, and that includes a gondola ride. If you need more help on planning your trip to Venice, then I recommend you go to my website, venicerevealed.com, where I've got a load of articles that will help you plan your trip to perfection.